Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Mythcast, our mechanics podcast here on UO Myth. We're going to be going over the crafting system and merchants today. As always, I'm Darian. We've got joining us today,
Hi, I'm Lydia.
and also our special guest.
The Nickel Knight.
So, we've got a lot to handle today, and it's going to be a very kind of numbers heavy episode. But first, let me just say that we have changed crafting here on Myth, the basics of crafting, and we're going to continue to change them as we move forward. These are some mechanics that are in flux. So we're going to give you the understanding of what they are right now, and we may have to come back to this podcast later on in the future and sort of add addendums to some of the things that are going to be changing. But that's good. That's what we're in Alpha for. That's the kind of thing we want to do. So first off, let me say there's two different kinds of crafters here on Myth. And when we say crafters, it's kind of hard to differentiate because it's a newer change that we've done. We've got an actual class that is focused on crafting, the merchant class, and any other class can actually take crafting as well using a different resource and adding that skill to their skill cap. But the only thing is that takes up cap that they can't put towards their class skills, and they're never going to be as good crafters as a merchant. So we've tried to balance things so that both of them have a place, so that either decision's pretty good. That's kind of the way we try to balance things, so that no one is better than the other. But they come out to be very different. And actually, I think Nickel, you've played a merchant, right? You're playing a merchant, uh, kind of a while ago, or was it a non-merchant crafter?
So I've done both at this point. I've played with a non-merchant crafter. I've also recently started playing with a merchant. I guess I should say, there's not a whole heck of a lot of difference as far as the basics of the class. Where it changes is mechanically is really how and where you access your craft potential. So merchants obviously get that through feats, whereas every other class is going to get that through perks. The difference being that one, I mean, if you're going through perks, like you could take any class and just start throwing craft skills on it and never take any of the other skills that you have available to you. The difference would be, of course, that by the time you reach level 20 on, say, a fighter that you've turned into a crafter, if you wanted to completely convert one of them, you would potentially have three completed craft skills or three or four completed craft skills. Whereas, consequently, a merchant by that time is probably going to have
All of them?
five, yeah,
Yeah.
five, potentially six, maybe have a 120 cap capability, so they can go well beyond what your normal class that's tried to achieve crafting through perks can achieve.
Right, it's similar in a way to using a mage slayer to be a wizard, or using a class in a way that still works but isn't the optimized way to do it. And also that, you bring up a good point in the resources, in that, merchants are going to get enough feats to cover most of the skills they need. I think there's a couple of feats there that they have to drop if they're going to take anything racially. But if you're doing it on a non-merchant crafter, you're putting your perks in. And for anybody who hasn't gone through this part of the mechanics, you get 7 feats from level 1 to 25. That's the only feat you'll ever get. That's it. That is a hard set number. Perks, you're going to get one every level, so 1 to 25 you'll get 25, and then you'll continue to get them. If you were going to level up to level 26, instead of getting anything else, you'll get a perk. But it takes 5 perks to get a new skill. You'll get 20 skill cap per perk, and that's not using it to train, that's only unlocking the cap. So if you're doing 3 crafting skills, you're looking at 15 levels worth of your perks put into crafting skills, assuming you don't need gathering, assuming you don't need writing. You're pretty much putting every single perk into something that wasn't designed to be part of your build. And the power banding of what you can do compared to someone of the same class who isn't a crafter is going to be very significant.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people always kind of wonder why we have both options. And it was mainly because of like demand. So we originally had scrapped being able to actually have merchant classes, like merchant skills in your class, and just had the merchant class because we thought originally that that's what people wanted to see, and they just wanted to be like a super crafter. But then actually it came out of the woodwork that you guys did like being able to slot that in if you had a different class. So we actually went full circle and changed it. So we got rid of the merchant class because you guys said that's what you wanted to do. And then, of course, some more people showed up and they really wanted the merchant class back. And that is why we have alpha, because we figured, it was plainly drawn like down the middle almost. Like some people really wanted merchant class and some people wanted to mix and match. So we have been working on balancing it so people could do both. By balancing it, if you are a class and you want to take some merchant skills, then you do, of course, forego some of your, like Nickel said, some of your original, skills that are for your class. And some people have found a really nice, in between. So, like, if you're a ranger, you can pick up leatherworking. There's just some things that you might not fully be able to choose as a ranger, and you give that up. But some people do like to have at least one little class that they sit and just do stuff on their downtime. It's a really good way to role play. It's a really good way to, just get some experience points fast. If you're not, for me, it's very useful because I don't like training. I hate fighting. I hate going dungeon runs. That's just not my style. I'm very role play centered. So in other shards too, I would also try to hopefully see if I could pick up tailoring or leatherworking or just something small so I could just make clothes for people and use that as an excuse to sit at the tavern and like role play with people. So that's where it comes in for like me, and I can see how some people would like that. But then of course there's other people who want to be the super crafter, be the best of the very best, and that's where the merchant class comes in. You're very limited, of course, in fighting and all that kind of stuff, and you're mainly there to make whatever the hell everybody wants.
Having multiple crafting skills, like to go back a little bit to say that the two different kinds of crafters are very different. One of the things that's really going to affect things is that merchants can take their skill above 100, whereas non-merchant crafters cannot. So a fighter that takes up blacksmithing, wants to make his own swords, he'll only ever have 100 real blacksmithing skill. So if he's using certain items from bulk order deeds or something else to boost his skill, he might be able to shore it up, but he'll never catch up with a merchant blacksmith because he can't get his skill that high. The way it works for blacksmiths is a little unique. You take whatever feat you want, your craft feats in order, and then there's a feat called Master Craftsman, which should be the last one you take. It bumps everything you have the crafting feat for up to 120 skill, which for some of them is very good, especially when it looks at racial crafts. Some of the racial crafts require like 95 skill to make, and so if you can only get 100, you're never going to have very good percentages on that. And honestly, I think only blacksmithing has items that can boost your skill anyway. So the other ones are the non-merchant crafters are really going to never hold a candle to the merchant crafters. But that's by design. You're not taking over the entire market as a crafter. You're adding crafting onto an already completely realized kit. So like, Lydia's example of having a ranger who does tailoring, you already have everything that a ranger can do, although that skill cap is going to get a little tight with taming and magic and everything that they can do, but you'd be able to do tailoring on top of what ranger can already do. That's why the skill cap is kind of important, and it's a good balance metric for everything else. Like you can take on more functionality, but you're giving up your specialization and you're giving up power for that.
Yeah, and I think that's like a good way to show that's always a good excuse to show, I guess, realism in your role play and in your character. Like a normal person, I guess, would if they were, more of a fighter, they might learn tinkering, just to help them repair their armor and that kind of stuff. Or like, a ranger might want a certain type of armor, so they would perhaps study tailoring just to do a couple. But like a normal person, well, not a normal person, you could if you wanted to expand your brain that much and just like, learn all of the classes and then also fight, which is possible too. Uh, but it just would cost a lot more, I guess, in what you could absorb and spend time fighting. Yeah, so that's kind of like the translation that I like to put it through, And again, it's just a game and you try to, I guess, take everything with a grain of salt, but we're a heavy role play shard. So that's kind of like it's our goal to create things, quote unquote, as realistic as possible.
That's even a feature in old D&D though. Like a lot of their original class based structure was on, well, you're specialized in this, so you lose that. Wizards have a lot. They've put their lives into just
Hmm.
studying magic, so they have really bad hit dice, so they don't get a lot of HP. It's an easy way to balance thing, and it also does like
Right.
fit with the narrative of how it's all working.
Hmm. And like that's when, I guess it's going to be in the blog post that I have yet to update. But I was going to say that's when, you can have two character slots. So you can play a super duper merchant crafter and then also the class you want. But what we're actually going to be able to do now is we've heard all of you guys have been wanting it for a while now.
Right.
We're giving you your third character slot. So everybody will be able to have a third character, with the option of you can have a fourth and fifth, but those will be you'll
Right.
be able to get those by donation only.
Right. There's a lot of things that have been updated in the last little bit and a lot of work that's gone on behind the scenes. Not as much stuff has been done with quests, and we're about to pick those back up again. So thanks guys for giving us a little time to work on some other
Yeah.
stuff. But we've even added some junior staffers who are helping us out. Things are moving for us. Things are going pretty well. Um, I do want to give a couple of tips and tricks for people who want to take up crafting skills. So they listen to this. I want to help them out a little bit. And Nickel, you can help me out here too because you've done it a few times, so you've probably like learned the ins and outs a little bit better than me. But some things to remember are that the gathering perks pay out on even numbers. So if you put a perk into, say, mining, not the mining skill, but gathering more, like it's actually called gathering perks. For mining, it's not going to do anything on the first perk. On the second, you'll get more ore when you mine. And the same thing goes for lumberjacking as well. I don't know if skinning works that same way. I think it might pay off each perk, but definitely the lumberjacking and mining one, they require two, but they are well worth it. Getting more resources when you're starting the beginning of your career and you're like filling up your house with giant mountains of logs or ore, those perks are going to pay for themselves. Trust me.
So yeah, and I was going to say, so skinning is each time, and then with regard to mining and lumberjacking specifically, there are some racial items that can kind of boost that a little further. I don't know if we want to touch on those or talk about what they are.
Oh, well, I mean, dwarves get some natural cap in that, and actually different classes get different amounts of mining and lumberjacking to start. So you can sort of save a couple of perks if you plan out, like if your class is actually meant to do so. For example, the rangers, when the example we used earlier, he starts out with a little bow crafting and a little lumberjacking, so you'll save a few perks if you want to make a crafter that way. But yeah, no, you can talk a little bit about the racials if you have some
Oh,
idea.
okay. So yeah, as far as like if you're looking to really get your maximum amount of like ore or wood, right? So if you've capped gathering and then you either find yourself an elven hatchet or a dwarven pickaxe, either one of those items will actually basically it functions like an additional point of gathering, right? So you get extra wood or you get extra ore. The difference with the the dwarven pickaxe specifically is that as long as you have that thing equipped, you will never ever ever mine any iron. Period. So if you are looking for iron, do not use one.
It puts you above the level.
Yes, it basically puts you above being able to even get ferrite ore. So if you are trying to get ferrite to train smithing, they're terrible. But once you've completed that, if you're just looking for something to gather just the absolute maximum amount of other metals, then they're actually really fantastic. You just have to find a dwarf to make them for you.
Right, and I honestly don't know of many dwarves that are going to be handing those things out because there's a lot of the dwarving mining bonuses for things like the dwarven forge and the pickaxe. Those are definitely a big part of their racial kit. Like
Right.
every class or every race actually has some really cool stuff with them. One of my favorites are the orc bridges. They can build bridge tiles and use them to cross rivers. I
Eh,
think that's so cool.
Well, they can, and I was going to say they can also build barricades.
Right. So every race has some cool thing that they can do that doesn't always get mentioned. I think there's even the racial alchemy potions are some of them are bananas. I think
Some of them are great. So like the elven, there's a plant growth potion that if you start with like a seed, those the planting bowls that you can use to grow your own plants. If you dump one of those onto one of those planting bowls that you can either make as a tinker or buy from a tinkering shop, you get a fully grown plant. So if you're trying to shortcut, doing your own kind
that's
of
like a
botany or
month of
whatever,
time.
oh my God, they're cool, right? So
Oh my god.
some of them don't get a lot of use, as cool as they are. I mean, one of the dwarven ones is like forge in a bottle, right? So you
Yeah, it's
can
like a potion of lava or something,
right.
and you
It's
pour
yeah,
it on
it's
your
basically like
ore,
a
and it
lava potion, right?
smelts your ore. So
Right.
crazy.
And so there are a handful that are like that. The drow get basically it's like poison immunity.
They have a
Um,
spiderweb net potion too, I
yes,
think,
and so
which
they
is
they also
really
have a
neat.
spider web net potion that you throw it at stuff, and it kind of like pins you to the ground. So it's super useful if you happen to be maybe a drow caster or a ranger that might have alchemy or somebody that can use ranged weaponry. Mechanically, it's super handy to play with. You can stick yourself, though. I speak from experience.
Well, yeah, I
Uh,
mean, you can also blow yourself up with explosive potions.
yeah, I was going to say I've done that too.
Oh,
So
oh no. Oh.
There are some high-level PvP items that come specifically from crafters and alchemists and tinkerers. Actually, I think when we get to big war games, like when one of the towns is going to attack another town or something, it becomes a big war raid, I think the alchemists and tinkers are actually going to win the game.
well, yeah. I mean,
Hmm.
they add a lot of
Yeah.
where it's typically just rush PvP. They add a sort of a degree of strategy. I mean, we've all had our fair share of runs on. They can make nets, and then what's the? I always forget what it is. It's basically the thing that
Bolas?
like. Well, there's the bolas, there's the nets, and then there's I can't remember what they're called. The things that you throw on the ground.
Caltrops.
Yes. So if you're not wearing plate mail boots, you're in trouble.
Yeah, they'll knock you down and do damage.
You're dead. You are done. That's it. I think that's really awesome because Myth is still like kind of new for a year now. We're still in alpha, a year and a bit. And I don't think a lot of players and myself even, I think sometimes even you guys like don't remember or like don't know the depths of the things that, crafters can do. It's not just straight up plate mail armor, leather armor, like weapons. Like there are also little trinkets and like neat little things that with racials, like Nickel said, that you can create. People just need to start, digging into it and seeing what can be done that can also be applied to your roleplay experience and other people's roleplay experiences. Hence, the explosives and the traps and all that kind of stuff when there's actually disputes going on between religions and areas. Like I'm really looking forward to seeing the stuff people come up with. I'm not looking forward to the complaints after a battle, but that always happens. um,
I think it's also because we've all grown up doing this and
yeah,
we're a little older now.
exactly.
And so things haven't been as tumultuous, I
Yes.
think would be the way to say it.
Yes. I think so too. This community is quite chill, and I'm so honored that you guys actually, play here constantly. Like it's so refreshing, and I'm just excited to, put more content out for you guys and talk to staff and see the amazing things Nickel puts out and like look at how amazing Nick Tor is coming. Darian and his mapper crew have been finishing it up, and we don't have a definitive date to update it, but it's coming soon with housing. So I mean,
Right. I'll speak to that a little bit too.
yeah.
The next big map update is going to be Nick Tor. We've got we're going to talk a little bit more about this in the blog post that comes up tomorrow. But we've got two junior staffers that have joined us, and honestly, they've just kick the door in and taking things over, and
Mhm.
they're doing great work because I was mostly in the way.
You were sweatshopping them. I know it.
I didn't mean to. I didn't think they were going to be as dedicated as they are,
I know they've
but
been
There's
like grinding
oh, it's been
away.
so
I
awesome. I mean, they're just
I have to be careful not to give them too
right.
much, like too many tasks in a row, because they will just do them
Yeah,
and I'll come back and feel really
and they'll
bad.
be like, "Hey, 3 days later, we did all of this." And you're like,
They
"Oh,
did an entire
we were
section.
expecting them to pick maybe 1 or 2 things and last the week, and then we'll work on the next things." But no, they're they wanted us to review it like 3 days after, and like they've done some really, really awesome work. And I'm really excited. Um, what town are we hitting next? Have we decided after Nick?
Well, see, the thing is, so I think that we're gonna have when we open up housing outside of Estvale, like
Mhm.
actual housing, I think a lot of people are going to move their characters from Estvale to Nictor.
Yep.
But Nictor isn't exactly the easiest place to live. There's
No.
some story reasons that are going to make it not super fun for everybody because it's not a place you're going to lock your doors and have a bunch of gold on the inside and nobody ever talk to you. It
Right.
doesn't work that way. They will get you out of it because it's very community focused, and that's the way the
Mhm.
elves are. And they, own their city. There are no property rights in Nictor. They will just boot you out. After that, though, the thing that is the most complete that could be quickly done and released is the outside of Montset. So the
Right.
inside of the mountain, right? Yeah. So the inside of the mountain still needs
It needs a
needs a
little
lot
bit
of
of
work.
yeah, it needs well, we just want to make it look a lot more finished, I guess you would say.
It's not a finished project, but the outside of it is pretty reasonable. So we're gonna
Yeah.
spruce up the outside. Since again the lore of it is that the inside of the mountain is pretty much for dwarves, and then everyone else lives on the outside of the mountain.
Mhm.
We're gonna open that housing up, so that makes sense. Players will be able to take those houses. So that gives them 3 cities that they can do. Then I think after that. Black Sands is going to get a facelift, and
Yep.
then we'll finally hit Mirderstern at the end. That's the tentative plan. Can't promise that's exactly the way
Right.
things are going to go down.
Might change.
Uh, right, because we might find that we can do the Montset update pretty quickly, and so we slot it in faster to get more stuff going. But
Yeah.
it's going to open the map up, and I think a lot of people are worried about us having a big map and there being houses all these different places. But we're also adding in things like we're going to add in the gate travel spell back. We're going to fix that so that people can use it.
Yes.
The beginning of that's already in the game. We've just got to get new there's a couple of steps we've got to go through to get that going, but I've also thought about opening gate travel up from just mages to mages and foresters because our story makes a little more sense for them to be able to do it. And so you might be able to get a little more fast travel going on, so the map's not going to be as big as you feel like it is.
I got dungeons to explore. I don't have time for your gate travel.
Yeah. Yeah, Nickel's just gonna run everywhere.
Yeah, I sometimes I see players that don't even have a horse or anything, and
Yeah, they just hoof it.
they
Well,
just hoof
eh,
it.
if I want to stealth, I have to use the ankle express. So
Ankle Express,
If
love
you
it.
want to stealth,
that is
yes.
that is not my. I can't ride a horse while I'm hidden.
This is true, man. That's a fair point.
To finish off with crafters, just to give a few last little
Yes.
things. Eventually, there comes a point where standard gear is not going to get any better. If you have maxed out your crafting skill, your gathering perks, you have arms lore all the way up because arms lore actually adds to I think the durability of the crafted items. Once you have all the skills up, you have everything, you're going to hit a wall. And so there is an end game for crafting, and that's the bulk order deeds and runics. So only blacksmithing and tailoring has bulk order deeds. That's the way the game came. That had nothing to do with us, and I would love to add bow crafting and carpentry and so on, but it would be an entire overhaul. Like we would have to add every bulk order and every item
Right.
for those bulk order deeds, which may very well happen in the future. But since so much of the game relies on blacksmithing and tailoring, it's probably going to remain that way for quite some time. And although I kind of want to bring tailoring and blacksmithing together, sort of in power as well, because I think blacksmithing got a lot more love than tailoring did in their bulk orders
Mhm.
as well. Some of those rewards are going to change a little bit. Some of them are probably too strong. Some of them are not nearly good enough for the amount of work that goes in. So, you've got to learn a little bit of the how the bulk orders work, and you've got to make those decisions because you're basically paying gold on the RNG chance to get items that you can't get any other way. So for blacksmithing, that's things like powder of fortification so that you can bump the durabilities of items up, hammers that boost your skill, or the runic hammers. And we have those for tailoring as well. We have runic sewing kits. Those runics are in-game item generators. There's two ways to get end game items, and we talked a little bit about gear in the other episodes, especially with things like the Mage Slayer. So someone who needs their gear to be amazing. The way you get that amazing gear is either you luck find it on a monster and then bring it to a blacksmith so that he can repair it and change the material called enhancing.
And probably blow it up.
More than likely blow it up.
It's a
I
risk.
well, it's a huge risk, and I think it's more like 85% of items are going to blow up.
Yeah,
So
it is. It's. I mean,
Ooh.
but I think it's fair in that. Yeah, I mean, there really aren't too many items that I've found for as much hunting as I've done where I went, yeah, I want to enhance that, or I know exactly what I want to tweak that with. I mean, I have boxes of items that it's going to require a little bit of experimentation. So,
right, like they're good items, but they don't speak to you that like this needs this material right now. And
yep,
it comes out to pretty good balance too because luck hunting can generate a ton of items really quickly, but they don't get any of the good things that crafters get from their skills. They're not going to have bonus durability. They're not going to have resource bonuses from things like mithril or what's it, blackrock, like those things. They're not going to get those. They're not going to get the bonus resistance on armor. They're just faster to generate and rely on your luck and your ability to hunt monsters. But on the other side of that, crafters with runic hammers and runic sewing kits are generating the same kind of items with higher intensity values. I'll tell you what those are in a second, but generating better items with better resistances and durability and so on, only they're very, very limited. It's very hard to get a runic hammer, and when you do, the bastard's going to have like 3 uses on it. And you use those 3 uses, and then it explodes and it's gone. And so, you've got to go and do the huge bulk order deed again to get another one. So they make less, like fewer items, but their items are going to far and away be better.
right. And then to your point about the runic hammers, so it steps up. Like lower end runic hammers have more uses. So as you get to that literally end game runic hammer, that's where you're going to have the least uses.
Yeah. But the way they work, and one of the things I really like about them is the hammers as they go up, because I think they're done by like the material. So there's like a dull copper hammer and
Yep.
they like a copper and verite and valerite and so on. And then the different leathers for the sewing kits. But as they go up, the intensity of that runic increases. And so the way it works is, let's say for example, it can give bonus mana, which I don't think it can. Maybe it can. Who knows? Um,
Everyone, don't hold us to this. We're just
Maybe it
theorizing.
can, now that I think about it. But let's say, for example, it can give you between 1 and 100 bonus mana on this item. Um, the lower end ones will say 10 to 20% is their only is as far as they can go. So when it rolls, it'll roll between 10 and 20, and that's the amount of mana you get. Higher material hammers have a higher intensity, so they may roll between 60 and 85%. And so you're getting less uses, but each individual property on the item has a higher intensity, so it has a higher low and high end that it can roll. So you're going to get better items again there. It's so even if you're doing this, I know it's a lot of time to put in, but the higher end items are always going to be better unless you roll bad mods because there is a level of RNG there.
Right. And well, and the other thing too is so I know a lot of people, at least early on, usually focus on material trades to get where they need to go. At some point, especially if you're playing a merchant, you either need a way to, on a regular basis, find or acquire gold. Bods are expensive.
It's a gold sink, yeah.
Um, yep.
And I mean that can be from like running a shop. selling items to people. Trust me, once this podcast comes out and people hear about like nets and caltrops and all that stuff, you guys are
Yeah.
going to be able to sell things a little better on your vendors, I think.
Yeah, there's so many cool things that I think people are going to be really excited that they find. And I hope they have fun experimenting with them and using them.
I'm kind of looking forward to like a really geared out super crafter character, like someone who's taken blacksmithing and tailoring and worked it
Right.
into their build in a way that like they can up enhance every item they have, and they like put tons of time into their gear, and then just see the difference between that and a standard character.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's gonna be leaps and bounds of
Well,
difference.
and I can tell you from kind of my own testing, if you are especially, as we talked about podcast a couple weeks back, mages have the ability to kind of flip things on their head, right? I mean, you can switch to different elements kind of on the fly. You have a little bit more of a, AOE effect where you can kind of just munch down dungeons really fast just because you have the ability to deal out that much damage. And people typically look at the warrior classes as maybe a tank, or at best, you're sort of an offhand, DPS type. But if you start really working with a crafter to tune your gear, as far as if you get a Slayer weapon, um, and maybe add get it enhanced with a particular metal that emphasizes a specific damage type, um, you really can sort of put yourself on that edge, right? So from personal experience, like I've got a couple of like Demon Slayer weapons on one of my fighters who, before when I used them, they did okay damage. I got them enhanced with steel, and instead of hitting for, I don't know, 18 to 20 damage, now I'm almost doubling that damage output, where I'm hitting for about 40. So if you befriend a crafter and you kind of work to that end, and obviously if your gear doesn't blow up from the enhancement process, or if they have the runic capability to craft for you, there's a lot that can be done to that end, especially if you're playing a sort of playing a fighter character over a caster. It's super important
Right.
for them.
I mean, mages look really scary when we're looking at DPS, but they fold like cheap suits. Like
Oh,
you're
absolutely.
never gonna stand up to
Yeah.
somebody in a suit of plate mail that has like 80 in every resistance or 75 in every resistance or something, and he's got
Hey man,
both hands full.
it's all about that light repeating crossbow.
I'm a big fan of
Fancy.
the hand crossbow and shield fighter
Yeah.
that
Oh, yep.
uses shield
Yeah.
bash. That is such a funny build. I love it so much.
Yeah, that is a good one, because there's a lot that can be done, especially with some of the custom crafts we've added, from the merchant side, or even from just if you're just taking crafting skills overall. There's a whole lot of versatility that I don't always see people explore as much, but I really think if you had somebody who took time to really deep dive into a merchant, especially a merchant, there's a whole lot of stuff there that I think is undiscovered, is because we don't have right now. There seems to be a lot of caster classes, or people that are kind of hybrid classes, mage slayers and whatever.
Hmm.
But we don't really have too many people that are maybe rogues or fighters who are kind of super dependent on gear, and without a good crafter to back you up. I'm not going to say it's impossible, but it becomes a lot easier if you can work alongside a merchant or somebody with craft skills.
And remember, if you're working alongside a merchant, you don't have to put your skill cap into it.
Yep.
Yeah,
That's a
man.
big
Just
deal.
piggyback. Just piggyback, you know? Boop.
And that leads into sort of the economy side of it, where
Mm-hmm.
you've got a bunch of hunters going out collecting resources, because you can drop a few points into the skinning gathering perk and you get so much leather from big monsters. Like you take a drake down and it'll literally be over 100 leather on it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously your character only kills drakes that are really fat.
Yeah, that's lots of skin on them.
Yep.
A couple of little suggestions for merchants, I think, before we wrap up would be, well, merchants and non-merchant crafters. If you're picking a class and you want to add a skill to it, you want to be self-sufficient because I know a lot of players want that. Consider what armor you can make. If you can only wear light armor, there's not a lot of reason for you to have blacksmithing unless you're reliant on melee weapon damage. You should pretty much think tailoring if you want to go full like pragmatic with your build. If you can use a lot of items, blacksmithing makes way more sense. But both of those skills are going to take a lot of effort. Those two are going to be very serious and be time sinks, but they give you the most, bang for your buck. There's Pay attention to your racial crafts. Ask people in the chat. Talk to people that play the different races. Ask crafters, that kind of thing. See what they can make so that you might be able to plan some cool character thing around it. And get ready for, if there are racials, them requiring several different crafts to make. So, like for example, I think it's the elven bows are actually metal instead of wood. They make like metal bow frames, and then you use the metal resources to make the bows, which is actually really cool because a lot
Yeah.
of the weapon abilities aren't available in woods; they're available in metals.
Oh,
And if
definitely.
if you rely on that kind of thing, having two or three of your weapon is a good idea because they could have different damage spreads or different speeds or something, and
Hmm.
changing that up when you're fighting monsters kind of closes the gap with mages where they can choose to do different damage types with spells. But honestly, you should be carrying two or three different swords with different damage spreads so that you can do the same thing. Myth, one of the things that I tell new players is that the more effort you put in before you fight, the better the fight's going to go. Like the more prepared you are, we are definitely a game that values preparedness.
Be prepared.
What else do we need to say for merchants? What's another?
I mean, if I were to, I guess from someone just coming into Myth, I think we pretty much kind of laid it out. Um, but if there were to be, I guess, and I might also know the answer, but if you were to pick, like, if someone's like, hey, what should I do first? Should I just go and be a merchant, a super merchant? Or would it be easier for me to understand if I took like a fighter class so I could kind of like learn the fighting and take a merchant skill?
So that's a good question, actually. Like that's something that we probably will get from players. Do you got an opinion, Nickel? Do you think?
Oh, absolutely. 100%. I think the easier thing for you to do, unless you just love crafting,
Right.
I think the easier thing for anybody to do, really, if you want to learn the shard, one of the easiest ways to do that is to roll a fighter.
Mhm.
They are kind of a staple class. They allow you a little bit of versatility as far as how many skills you need to complete one versus your ability to throw in some crafting skills there with the perk system. It's very easy to take like one combat skill and then maybe throw some perks into blacksmithing and mining, or tailoring, or whatever you favor. Um, but at least that way you can learn the mechanics. You can learn about some of the different things that crafting offers. Whereas merchant, I think is definitely more specialized. Unless, like I said, you're that person that just, hey, you love crafting and
Yeah.
that's what you play UO to do, and so
Some people have
Yep.
been career crafters.
Yeah, and that's why we when we took it away, we brought it back, and then we decided to just
yeah, I mean,
figure out to do
torches
both.
and pitchforks, man, torches and pitchforks. So what are you
But
doing?
I want everybody to know that we do listen. Like
Yeah,
I thought originally when we
we
added
both thought.
crafting to the non-crafters, I thought that was it. I thought we
Yeah.
didn't need merchant. We were good.
Thought everyone was
But
like,
man,
"Yeah," but no. No, we were mistaken. We were very much mistaken. People and, I do see it, in a role play perspective, if you wanna be that person that makes something for everybody, a while ago, a long time ago, I played, the owner of a pub, and she, like, she had cooking, but, like, I also took up a whole bunch of other, crafts, but back then they didn't offer just the merchant craft, so it was like, I was a fighter, but then I had all of these, different things, and it would have been a lot easier and better for me if I had the availability to go all the way with all those crafting skills, just because that's the way my character was. My characters, as you guys probably know, are very much like I try to help people as much as possible. So I'd either go like priest, or I'd go like merchant, or even I do like, a priestess with like tailoring or cooking or like something like that, to back up and to have something to fall back on role play wise. Um, so that's what I, had discovered, how the merchant class on itself, the super merchant, as I like to call it, um, is a very valuable option. But you do have to know, how the mechanics work. You do have to know what's worth picking. And again, if you guys want to take that leap and try it out, just ask and help. Listen to this podcast on repeat on YouTube, and like, just work it out. It does take, again, a little bit of research, but if you're super excited for it, the research usually is almost nothing.
Well, and I was going to say too, to your point, one of the things I don't think we um, talked about yet, and I just wanted to cover that, before we wrap up,
Yeah.
is so merchants do or can, tag along on dungeon runs if you do want to play with. They have a feat for combat training. So that'll kind of let you um, sort of get a little more versatility in a fight. I don't. It adds some things to different weapon skills, usually bringing them up to like the 80s range.
Right.
Um, so you could, tag along on some dungeon runs with
Yeah.
another party. Are you going to be probably out there in the front line, slinging it out with a fighter? No, but you don't have to hang back in town either.
On the other hand, though, if you have put the effort into getting jewelry, getting 20 weapon skill off of your jewelry is not hard.
Right. It's not hard. So you could end up getting to a point where you might have a GM level fighting skill.
Yeah.
Um, you can make golems. Yep.
Yeah. Box of Bread asked, "Can you make golems here?" And Nickel just said, "Yes, yes, you can."
Yes.
Yeah. So and by the way, the other thing to keep in mind is you can make golems with a minimum of 60 tinkering, but the skills that they start out with improve the higher your skill is. So if you have 100, 120 tinkering, you can build a golem that's pretty much already fully trained.
Which is pretty great. Actually, there's a few things I want to mention with that. But first, Hunter asked a question, and Nickel answered it in the chat. But I want to put a finer point on it. He said, "Are there any items crafters can make that non-crafters can't, which are merchants can make that non-merchants can't?" And Nickel says, truthfully, no, but failure chance will change since it's based on skill. That I know that it doesn't sound like a big deal, but all of the racials, for example, every item in the game that I've come across, I can't remember any that are not, require below 100 skill to craft. So technically, yes, a non-merchant crafter can make racials, but they're gonna be requiring they're going to have maybe like a 13, I think it's 13.7% at 100. I could be wrong on that. That may very well be item dependent, but I remember that being a thing, like
Well,
13% to
and
make plate or something.
right, and well, so for you to get like an exceptional quality plate tunic, right, as a GM smith with just GM smithing, the chance is like 5%, right?
Right.
Which
So
that's pretty terrible. But if you really want to just sit there and grind out ingots all day long and you don't care, hey, I'm not going to tell you what to do with your time.
right. So when we say, yes, it is technically possible, we're saying, you might be going through 1,000 Valorite ingots before you get what you're doing. Yes, you can make it, but it may be very hard to do. The RNG could hate you and just, eat all your materials and give you nothing.
Yep.
Just like with enhancing items, you're going to see a marked difference between 120 skill enhancing and 100 skill enhancing, and that's
Yeah.
actually, I feel
There's
like people are going to learn that, this person isn't a lifetime smith, they're not a focused merchant. Maybe I don't want to take my enhanced gear to them because it's going to blow up much more often than if I take it somewhere else.
right, and it will. So it slides on a scale for your skills. So that's definitely true of merchants just out of the box, right? You don't need a special item to hit 120 above 100, 120 or what have you. So if you are bringing your items to a merchant to enhance them and they have 120 in skill, it does make a big difference, right? It might be instead of, you know, a 2 in 10 chance that your item will survive, maybe now it's 4 in 10, right? So Because there are 3 possible rolls when you fail, right? There's fail and you lose some materials. There's succeed, and then there's fail catastrophically, at which point your item will explode.
Right, that's the
So
one I see most of the time.
yes, so whatever item you might have just spent a long time hunting for, and hey man, this is the perfect piece of gear for my character, and then you just bring it to your whoever's in your party that happens to have like GM smithing. Well, yeah, sorry.
And I mean, that's even assuming, yeah, that's even assuming you can like shore up the durability as well, because found items are going to have like 30 to 60 durability, whereas a crafted piece of gear can have over 100.
Yeah,
And
and so the cap on anything, just so everybody is aware that the durability cap, the absolute maximum, cannot go any higher, no matter who makes it, is or whether it's found is 255. So you
right,
can't
that's
get above that number.
the bit integer of durability. Like it won't go
Right.
any higher than that.
Won't go any higher than that. So
That's even
if
for artifacts and everything.
right,
That's a hard
so
limit.
so so if you happen to find some item that's at like 255, or sorry, 254, and you think you're going to get above that limit by just throwing some fort powder on it, sorry, you just burned a piece of, or you just burned some fort powder for like 1 durability point.
Right.
Uh,
It's better to just keep it above low, and then as it goes down, keep fort powdering it. And I mean, that's another thing, is that higher skill means that you eat less durability when you repair. So the system, everywhere you look at it, it's to give these things. So like a mage crafter can teleport if he's a bow crafter or whatever, and he can teleport across rivers and get trees on the other side, but he'll never actually match up skill wise on the actual crafting to a merchant. And so I really like this design. I know it was hard to get here, but I actually really like how they both have a niche.
well, and so you do have some people that are probably going to focus a little less on the resource cost, and say, oh well, it doesn't matter, I'll just get more resources. Well, you say that, but sometimes that's time consuming, or maybe you don't have as much
That's
time
a
to
matter of
play.
hours.
If yeah, it's a matter
Mhm.
of hours. If you have all the time in the world and you want to sit around and just gather resources, hey, you know what? You're logging in. I don't care.
Yep.
But if you only have a little bit of time to play and you don't want to really just burn through a ton of resources that you
Mhm.
spent maybe all week collecting, merchants where it's at.
Right. I like them a lot. I will say that I kind of want to look at that combat training feat. I feel like it had more oomph in older shards that use this code base. When I looked at it this one, I was a little unimpressed.
Yeah,
So
it's not near as impressive as I remember. I mean, I don't
yeah,
know, in one of the
I
very
don't know
early
what
podcasts,
changed.
man, remember I tanked a Paragon Lich with my crafter.
Right.
Whoa.
So that may like we may bump up uh the combat training feat,
Mhm.
and of course we would retroactively fix people and stuff too, because we don't know exactly when that's going to happen.
Right.
But it may, that would be good because it may open up merchants more resources that they can use, because I don't think they have any way to use their mana. But
Well,
you
and
know
and
what?
and if something they could use their mana on would be cool if we could
Yeah,
figure something, because they don't. I mean, they get the stat, but it
not
doesn't
a
do
lot.
anything, right? I mean,
Yeah, they don't get anything really in it.
Hmm.
Like stamina for mages, as long as you're not above, as long as you're above 0, the stat means nothing.
well, I think it's like actually 10 is when it just starts to drop for no apparent reason. But
That wasn't me. I didn't do that.
We're still working on it,
Okay,
guys.
guys. Yeah, a lot of things
uh,
going on in alpha. The next one is curious if the skill detect hidden does anything other than revealing someone. I think it also can be used for traps,
it
but
so yeah, it along with remove trap, I think can both be removed used for traps. It's not in yet, but I seem to remember from an earlier chat log or something to that effect. There was some talk about being able to combine detect hidden with another skill to break someone out of a disguise.
right, I think it
But
was
I
forensics was the other
forensics
one.
I think is the other one. But at the moment, detect hidden, all that does is reveal people, and then it can also be used for traps. But there's only one dungeon so far that makes extensive use of traps, with more to come, by the way. So be prepared for that.
That's always good to
Heck
hear.
yes.
So yeah, with the new map update, hopefully we'll be doing some dungeon content as well because we're repurposing some old dungeons.
Yep.
But
Hopefully, what do you mean? Hopefully, there
We
will be
are like,
dungeons.
yeah, we
look,
just,
I wasn't gonna put
you
too
know,
much on you.
Nickel just loves it too because that's why, man, all of our staff members are so great because they're just so passionate. Sorry, just let me like gush about our staff members. They're just also so passionate about this project, which is what we love to see because this is, we created the idea, but like our idea was to help, you know, help be an option for other people to come in and be staff members and help us tell our story with them also putting in their own little love and care. So yeah, just to toot my staff's horns, you guys are awesome. And if you're listening to this, thank you very much for all of your help. We know that real life gets in the way, but we're really happy to have you guys. We wouldn't be able to be here without you guys. Other than that, we would just be like, imagine me and Darian had it like we started this project where we're like, it's just gonna be us and no one else is gonna help us. Like Darian's like, I'll learn how to code, and I was like, yeah, I'll just do the art stuff.
I
Like
never actually learned how to code.
we are so glad other people decided to come on and help us because we didn't know how to do shit other than the stuff that we're good at. Like everyone brings what they're good at to the table. um we all have our jobs that we kind of oversee and do, and that is what I was looking for in just in a hobby. We all do our part and we all do our part very well, and when we need to ask questions, we're all very open to solving it. um
Right,
yeah,
we're definitely trying to listen to you guys when you come to us with us stuff. That's
exactly.
why, like, we did the third character slots. That's why a lot of the merchants came back, for example. Like, we
Yes,
try to listen.
we try our
Um,
best.
so there is another question. Haunter asked, "Is the profession feat going to be updated to allow crafters to have apprentices?"
Oh,
Well,
that's cool.
in theory, that's already in because there's a teaching perk,
Doesn't it
and
not work?
so
I'm gonna say
no,
that.
no, it
You can't turn
it's
it off or something?
yes, okay, so it uses the party system. And so if
Right.
you don't close it properly, if you don't quit out, the
Mm.
game is going to think you're still in a party. And so
Oh
you
dear.
can't join any
Just
other parties.
teaching forever.
Um, yeah, exactly. And so we have to fix you or wait for a server restart. Now,
Okay.
apart from that, it works fine. It just you have to turn it off. I
Okay.
think that would be great. I think that'd be a cool way to take somebody in and teach them how to do it. And I mean, you can role play how
That'd be
you
so fun.
for blacksmiths, for example, like
Yeah.
the places you go to mine specific ore could be something you pass down to an apprentice,
Mhm.
or what items you use to skill up. Like all of those little bits of mechanical information can be turned into things that you've learned on your path
Pass
as,
down.
yeah, like role play information
Pass
as well.
down to your apprentice. Yeah, so I guess in this, so we'll just make it clear then. I mean, the teaching does work. You have to remember to turn it off or you're forever teaching.
Yeah,
And perhaps maybe that's something I'll put in the blog too as a little
a
uh
reminder.
yeah, a little reminder, turn it off before.
Yeah,
Yeah, always turn it off.
it's what start teach and stop teach. I think is.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're oh, and I mean, if there are commands you're looking for in game, we have a dot help and dot commands. You can definitely look at the
Mhm.
giant list of all the things players can do. Now
Huge.
it's going to show you things your class can't do because it's
Sorry
showing
about
you
that.
everything a player can do. But there's no way for us I don't know how we would even fix that. But
Yeah.
it's going to show you all the commands.
One day maybe we'll fix that, but that's like on the very little last thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
learn
learn
coding, I
coding,
think is
obviously. Yeah, Darian. Jesus.
nice. Good answer.
Jesus.
Um, Okay, guys. Well, I think we've got about an hour, so we
Yep,
are gonna
I
cut
think
this
we're
down,
good.
and we got some info. Is there anything you guys want to throw in as like last
Yeah.
suggestions for merchants?
Yeah. Please don't tell us to remove it.
Yeah, it's staying. Sorry,
It's
folks.
staying. It's staying. We've learned our lesson.
I would say when you're skilling up, gather 8 million times more resources than you think you need,
Agreed.
and
Practice,
that'll
practice,
save you
practice.
a lot of. Yeah, exactly. That'll save you a lot of work.
The only the only thing I'd add is if especially if you're doing tinkering or blacksmithing, Your ingot yields that you get from your piles of ore are actually based on not just like your success chance based on your mining skill. How much you get is based on your
Right.
mining skill. So, in my experience, having done smithing several times now and tinkering once, it's way better to just stockpile all of the ore you ever mine in your bank. Wait till you're GM mining or above if you're a dwarf, and then smelt everything. Get a lot
Yeah.
more ore that way.
I mean, that's the way to, but it's so hard to collect all of it and not work on your blacksmithing.
It's tough, but
It,
hey,
it's the better way. It's the
Challenge.
more efficient way.
it
But
is the more efficient way if you're
Mhm.
just looking to get through it faster. Because at some point it does get kind of painful.
Ooh. Beep, 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 beep. Okay. Well, I guess that's. Oh, do we have one more question? Let's see. Well, Box of Bread said we need to remove all the crafting, please. And I'm flipping
yeah,
a
sorry.
table and saying no.
Yeah, we
Uh,
can't do that.
yeah,
Sorry.
no.
People would
I'm using my
mail us
min
glitter bombs
privileges
if we
and
did
saying
this.
we appreciate your comment. Yeah. But no.
So guys, thank you so much for being with us here. I'm glad we could go through some of the mechanics and stuff here.
Yeah.
So like always, we've got to pick the next class we're going to do. Oh, see, all right, somebody was
Max
already
came
on
in
it.
last.
Hunter, Hunter had it ready before I even
Oh,
said,
dude, he
but
Yeah, I
knew.
mean
He
he
knew.
was like on it.
It looks like Rogues is our next.
Yes, Rogues is next, man.
Rogues
so
is,
that'll be the Scoundrel Assassin and Bard, I believe.
and that will be this
Yep.
Sunday. Are you guys ready for that? Can we do this Sunday?
I can do this Sunday. I'm good.
Sweet.
I
Yeah,
need Nickel's help on this because I famously hate rogues.
All right.
what hater?
Yeah, I can't. Well, I play
Everyone has
mages,
their
and
class they dislike. We could probably
yeah,
have like a whole hour argument. We could probably get Des in here. We could get a bunch of people just like say, "What is your least favorite?" And then we could give them fun
Well,
tips about it.
doesn't Des hate everything?
Yes,
Des pretty much hates
he is
everything.
the
We
grumpy old
could do a
man
tier
arguing.
list one day of like all the classes and see which one like
Oh, we
by
need
voting we think is the
that is
best.
okay. We need to make we need to find the one thing Des actually enjoys. Like that is the next
Thing
hour.
that we need.
The
Well,
next
no,
thing.
that's. I thought you were going to say that's the next thing we need to nerf.
Yeah. That Des, we love you if you're
Damn.
listening.
Yeah, he's a pretty good guy.
Yeah.
All right, guys, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank
We're gonna
you.
all sign off, and we'll get this back up for you guys soon.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good night, guys.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.